All right, and so now, a few minutes early, we are going to bring back up Jeremiah Camara, everyone.
Listen, I don't want to be misconstrued by the fact that I'm against voting or politics, because I'm not. Like he said, free thinking is political. And I've hired 22 felons. This is what I do in my business. All I hire is felons. And I've hired 21, and my next one is going to be 22. I'll be hiring another felon next month. That's a political act. I clean up neighborhoods. I pick up the trash in my neighborhoods. That's a political act. So I don't want to be misconstrued with that. But I want to get back to where I left off. I think the last thing that I said was, all right, thank you. And all of the speakers, listen, they've been great. I've learned from everybody. I've learned from everybody, and this has been great. The last thing I think I left off with was, as racism dies, as religion dies, so will racism. It's one and the same. The reason is because racial conflict in America is stemmed from the two highly controversial words that are never talked about. That's superiority and inferiority. There happens to be a group of people who believe that they were superior, made differently, made more divine. And I know, man, there are non-believers that are listening to this, so sometimes, it's preaching to the choir, as they like to say, but there's a lot of non-believers, and I want them to really hear where I'm going with this. That's what gave birth to racism. That's what my film, Holy Hierarchy, the religious roots of racism in America, that's on Amazon Prime, talks about. That's what it's about. When you see white images of Jesus, and please don't discount that. And believe me, you've seen more. If you go into Walgreens today, your subconscious will see that image of white Jesus, because your subconscious perceives things in totality. I could tell you how many lights there are right now. If I walked out, my subconscious can tell you how many lights are in this building. My conscious mind won't, but my subconscious is able to do that. And we're subconsciously massaged every day with imagery. When you see images of white Jesus and his father, who are pretty much one and the same, in Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, gas stations, hotels, churches, hospitals, flea markets, residential homes, airports, billboards, books, movies, doctor's offices, schools, universities, and many other places. On the way down here to New Orleans, I saw several billboards, white Jesus. And I tried to get into the chapel here at this hotel because I know, like I said, they have one. We're going out later, we're going to see them. They're everywhere. We're saturated with that. We want to know why we have a race problem in this country. Gail Jordan, one of our speakers, she said it. She said visibility is everything. She's right about that. The imagery speaks louder than anything any of us can say. It speaks, I forgot my water, I think. I'm sorry. But imagery speaks loud. And it says that whites are superior. And that's why me and my wife have started, thank you, a nonprofit organization. It's called ERICA, E-R-I-C-A. It's called Ending Religious Iconography in America. And in fact, if you just Google the term, just Google the image of God and see what comes up. Just Google the image of God and see what comes up. And you want to know why we have a problem in this country. Now, that is a subtle and implicit form of racism and white supremacy that has to be eliminated. Now, the cop that has no hesitation to kill an unarmed black, or a police force that won't harm a white mob that breaks into the White House is a direct result of perception. It's how blacks are perceived and how whites are perceived. One speaker said it. I think Alvin, we were talking about that earlier today at breakfast. If they were black, they would have been annihilated. There's no question about that. Why? Because of perception. Where did this perception start? With the notion that there was a God who created them more divinely. And I think we need to stay on that. Stay on it. If you walk into, whether you're black or white, you go into a store and you see these images, protest. Tell the store manager. If you don't say anything, you're part of the problem. Now, during this holiday season, you know, in my subdivision, we had 2 white nativity scenes, because it's about 60-40 white and black in my subdivision. And I was going to put a note on one of the doors, but I said, damn, he has ring. He'll probably see me. I'll probably be all on the ring community. But I wanted to. Now, here's a guy, a white guy, you know, he's cutting the grass. I always speak to him. He always speaks to me, hey, how you doing? But then he put a white nativity scene out. What does this say when me and my grandchild are taking a walk and she looks over there and she sees this image? What does it say? Everyone discounts that. Black people year-round called out racism, complained about racist act, but then when the holiday season came along, we didn't say a word. And there were white nativity scenes all over this country. Nobody said a thing about it. And in Atlanta, you know, supposed to be the big mecca of black people, there was a church, a couple of them, one close to where I live in Lithonia. You live in Atlanta, in Lithonia. They had a black church with a white nativity scene, but 2 angels were playing the instrument. I said, damn, isn't that America? Black folk entertaining. You know, entertaining the master, the Jesus that's right there. That was so American of us. And it's just a shame, you know, and I want to get this started, this Erica thing started, because I think that we need to stay on top of that. Now, if Jesus is black, he's got a whole lot of explaining to do. A lot of explaining to do. If he's black and we accept the fact, the idea, the notion that he's black, then we all need to check ourselves into a mental institution for worshiping a God who has no problem with keeping his own kind on the bottom rungs of society. It makes no sense. And please don't go with this Middle Eastern stuff either. Let's just stop it. It's mythology. But, you know, blacks have got to just spend their time more wisely. I know so many blacks who are more interested in being biblically literate than they are financially literate. And in capitalism, that's just not going to work. But where do we go from here? First of all, Mandisa, this organization is the most visible organization that we have as black people, to let people know that there are blacks that think like myself out here. We need black non-believers. I thank you for this organization, and anytime that you invite me, I will be there with whistles and bells on. I don't care if it's in Alaska, I'm coming, okay? Now, there are universal laws that are at work all the time. Whether we believe they are, think they are, know they are, they're working, okay? No matter what our beliefs are, we are on the 19th floor, me and my wife. If we all came up to the 19th floor and jumped off, all of us are goners, because the law of gravity is going to make sure of that. So it doesn't matter what you believe, the law of gravity is in control of this thing, okay? Many other universal laws. You know, I let go of religion about 40 years ago, and I've lived a very good life. I'm not bragging. It's just the fact that I have. I've lived a good life. I've been all over the world. I've been married 31 years. I have a prospering business. I have 3 beautiful children, and I haven't believed in any of this stuff. And black people need to know this can happen. You can do this. You can prosper without being religious. Now, it's like the country of Sweden. Every year, Sweden is voted as the happiest place on earth. Every year. And they asked this one person from Sweden, why? Why is it that you guys always are the happiest people on earth? He said, we don't have any expectations. They don't do religion there. They're not expecting a Jesus to return and make their lives better. They just go on with their lives. Now, I have plenty of reasons, and this is where I'm going to tell you about my life. I got plenty of reasons to assume that a God has been walking with me all of my life, that there is a God that has been carrying me. You remember the poem Footprints? When I look back and I only saw one set of footprints, God, I thought you was with me. That's where I was being carried, okay? So when I look back at my life, I see one damn of footprints through the whole way. I mean, one set of footprints. It was my own footprints, okay? Now, we got these universal laws, some of them, just name a few. Divine oneness, the law of vibration, the law of correspondence, the law of attraction, the law of inspired action, etc., the law of cause and effect, the law of compensation. We have all of these universal laws that are at work right now. Me and Mandisa have been under the law of attraction for 11 years now, because we met in 2010. The law of attraction says that which is likened unto itself is attracted. And we've been under that law for the longest. Now, I'm just going to be honest and not pretend to have this divine relationship with this invisible being, because I'm only a product of the universal laws. When I was 10 years old, I went with my friend to Clinton Hill Swimming Club. I was born and raised in Cincinnati. And he got up on this high diving board and he jumped in the water. And I was like, and I was a better athlete because I was a better baseball player than he was. He sucked at baseball. And I was like, oh, I know if he can do it, I can do it. I went up there on the top of that thing and I jumped off. And when they say your life flashes before you, I swear, that is no lie. I was 10 years old and I actually saw frames of my life. I could see the sun in the water, but I was fighting. My fists were balled. I didn't know how to swim. And here's this lady, this beautiful lady. I want to find her somewhere on Facebook or something. I got to find out who was lifeguarding back in 1973. She came and swooped me up, right? Now, I could say that was God. The fact is, no, there was a lifeguard there. I just didn't know how to swim. My mother heard about that, and the next week I was at the YMCA taking swimming lessons, and I became a great swimmer, became a lifeguard, can swim my butt off now. That had nothing to do with God. That was the fact that I couldn't swim, and there was a lifeguard that was on duty to save me. Well, let's fast forward. I was 16 years old. I was walking down the street, and these 2 white guys pulled up, and they had this shotgun. They rolled the window down. I was with my friend, and he said, nigger, like that, and he shot me. All of a sudden, I saw blood just squirting everywhere. My shirt was just a bloody mess. He shot me with a BB gun. He must have pumped it so hard. And when I went home about 2 weeks later, I told my mother, I said, you know, I don't have any feelings. She said, let's go. She took me to the doctor. The BB gun was still lodged in my bone right here. Right now, if you punch me in the face, I'm probably going to win the fight because I don't have any feeling right here to this day. Now, I could say that there was a God. If I was a preacher, oh my goodness, that's a story to tell. God was with me, because if that was my eye, that went right through to my brain. But you know what that was? That was evolution. I just happened to be 6'1". Because if I had been a little smaller, a little shorter, it went right through my eye. Fast forward, same year, I was 16. I was coming from a party. a little club called Checkers Club in Cincinnati. I'm walking down the street, about from where I am now to where you're sitting. There were two black men walking, and I was walking right behind them. Their names were Dante Evans and Darrell Lane. You can look it up online. Dante Evans and Darrell Lane. They were great athletes. I remember the track meet was coming up, and Darrell Lane was fast as lightning. And we were all coming together, and they said, Jay, you gonna keep walking? I said, man, I'm hungry. I'm gonna stop and get me something to eat. So I stopped in a place called Brothers 3 to get me something to eat. When I came back out of that restaurant, there were about 8 police cars. I was like, what happened? There was a guy named Robert Franklin, a white supremacist who was sitting up on top of the bridge, waiting for black people to walk down the street. He killed both of them. That was me. I could say that there was a God, but you know what? I hadn't eaten that day. I was just hungry. That's just the bottom line. That's the truth. Now, here it is in high school. I had a 1.7 GPA. I finished 399 out of 401 graduating class. I was one of the worst students in school. I stuck in the 11th grade. And I was running around with the wrong crowd. So I said, you know what? I got to go to the military. This ain't working. Let me go to the military. Before I went to the military, I said, let me go to Chicago just for a minute to hang out with some of my, friends who were there that I knew who had went to Chicago with their parents or whatever. And I went up there for a while, and I was going to join the military. Right when my name was getting ready to be called to swear in, I went through all this process, my cousin came in and said, man, your mom told me that you were here, and you don't have to do this, man. You can come and stay with me, because I was just sleeping in my car, and it was getting cold in Chicago. And so I left. So I'm getting somewhere with that. I left Chicago. I moved to Cleveland. So I'm back in Ohio now. And I was going to the military again because things were going bad in my home again. I'm running into trouble. I'm doing all kind of stuff. So I go to the recruiting station, and all of these recruiters were around me because it was like 5:30. They were ready to go home. And you're going to sign here? And I looked up, and I was like, no, I'm not signing anything, because I felt pressured. I felt like they were pressuring me. So I got up and left. About a year later, I was downtown Cleveland. I walked from downtown Cleveland all the way to East Cleveland in some shoes whose sole was probably this flimsy. They were called lay gloves. It was so flimsy. By the time I got home, my heels were aching to the point that I couldn't even lay them on a piece of cotton. They were hurting so badly. I wound up getting orthotics in my shoes. I wear orthotics now because of that. Okay? Things got bad again. I said, I'm going to the military this time again. I'm done. This is it. So I found out where I was going to go. I was going to Seattle, or somewhere in Washington, and I was taking the physical. We were stripped down to our underwear. And then all of a sudden, here comes the doctor. He comes over with this folder. It has a DQ on it. I'm like, DQ? You know what that means? I said, what does DQ mean? He said, disqualified. I said, why? He said, are those your shoes over there? I said, yes, sir. He said, you can't wear orthotics in the military. 3 times I tried to get into the military. So several years later, I'm reading this article. It said 30-something% of black men who have a sickle cell trait, like I do, died in basic training. If I was a preacher, woo, that'd be a hell of a story to tell. I could just say, look at God. Look what God have done for me. No, the fact is I had a sickle cell trait. The fact is I hurt my feet being stupid, walking from downtown Cleveland to East Cleveland. That's all it was. Let me fast forward. My friend was, I was I was kind of depressed because I had went back home from Cleveland to Cincinnati. He was like, come on, man, go to a softball game with me. I was like, man, I don't feel like it. He bugged me and bugged me. I said, okay. So we went to the softball game, and I saw this lady way across the field, and I could see the curvature across the field, and I saw that big smile. I was like, whoa. And I said, and she said, and I said, come here. And she said, no. And I said, she was with the guy, and guess what, Alvin? The guy was playing he was like a prospect for the Green Bay Packers, your team. But he had bad knees. But anyway, she was with him and wouldn't come to me. And I was like, damn. So I got back in the van, and I told my friend that went to the game with, I said, man, I just saw my wife. And I'm not lying. I said, I saw my wife. He said, man, you don't even know her. I said, bro, that's the girl that I'm going to marry. I bet you. He said, you don't even know that girl. I said, we'll see. Time went by. I had kind of forgot about it. Then one day, 3 months actually went by, because that was June, so we're talking about September. One day, the Cleveland Browns was playing the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football. I went to the little party, Monday Night Football party. I'm sitting there. This girl comes and taps me on the shoulder, and I look around, because it was the same group who was having the softball game. I turn around, I said, yeah. She said, you remember that girl that you was hitting on at the park? I said, yeah. You're not her. And she said, well, she told me if I ever ran into you to give me your number. So I got the number. I was like, whoa. I played hard to get. This was Monday. I didn't call it a Thursday because I didn't want to feel like I was being desperate. So I called her Thursday. We went out. I said, damn, how am I going to tell this woman I don't do religion? It's a black woman. She lived right down the street from a church. I'm in trouble because I like this woman. So I went up to her and I said, our first day, we were just walking. I said, listen, I don't do Jesus and church and religion and the Bible and God and all that stuff. And I held my breath. She said, well, only reason I go to church is to hear the good music. I was like, whoa, this might work. So we went out on a date, our first date. I'm driving. I tell her, I said, listen, I don't have any driver's license. I don't have any insurance, okay? If I get pulled over, this is who you call, okay? You call my sister, okay? I had nothing. I was broke, okay? And I said, and we rode for a little bit, got a little quiet, and I looked, I said, and do you smoke marijuana? And she pulled out a joint about the size of my finger. I was like, boy, you combine the fact that she ain't doing Jesus and smoke weed, I'm gonna marry this woman right here. So I took a nap, drank a beer, I took a nap. When I woke up from the nap, I was married and I had 3 children. My oldest daughter, our first daughter, it was cold, blistery cold day, like frosty and just snow flurries in Ohio, in Cincinnati. And I was taking her somewhere, I don't remember, but I put her snowsuit on. And I started, got her, and I was driving down the street, everybody was blowing at me. I heard a horn, I was like, what in the world is going on? And I was like, what? And I stopped. They were doing this. So many people were doing it. I was just getting ready to hit the highway. I pulled over. My daughter was up on top of the car. I had left her in the car seat. I didn't even put her in the car. She was still on top of the car, asleep, sucking the pacifier in the blizzard. Now, if I was a preacher, I could say, look at God. But the fact was, I had smoked one before I put her in the car. And when you smoke, you know you're only doing 20 miles per hour. I was doing like 25 and a 50 miles per hour was all. from smoking some marijuana. Okay, I'm just being honest with you. That's why she was still up on top of the car, okay? Now, we had 3 children, never went to church, never celebrated any holidays, never celebrated Christmas, nothing like that. So I guess technically I'm a Jehovah's Witness, I guess. We said, let's move to Atlanta. 25 years ago, we moved to Atlanta. We rented a U-Haul. It took, from the drive from Cincinnati to Atlanta is 6.5 hours, no more than 7. It took us 36 hours to get from Cincinnati to Atlanta. The truck broke down, we lost our cat. When we pull up at my brother's house where we were staying, my brother was drunk and he was cursing out the neighbor. My wife started crying, 3 little bitty children. And I got them all. She said, did we make the right decision? I could have easily, if I was a Christian, I'm telling you, it's liberating not to be a Christian. Because if I was a Christian, I'd have been, that's God trying to tell us something. Let's turn our butts around and go back home. But I put them in a huddle and I said, I'm going to take care of y'all. And I could say, you know, now, like, our first job was knocking on doors to rake their leaves. Now my wife has probably the biggest, if not one of the biggest tax companies, privately owned tax companies in Metro Atlanta. And that was our first job, is knocking on doors to rake leaves. Now I could easily say that it was God, you know, trying to tell me something and could have went back home. But you know why the truck broke down? I had smoked again. And I put diesel gas in a regular U-Haul truck, a truck they call for regular. We'd have saved my life much more than Jesus have. Now, you know, all of my friends that I saw who were actually Christians, they were struggling. I was like, well, what does he do? What is this God's job description? Does he feed the hungry? No, because within the next 24 hours, 30,000 children are going to die of starvation and disease. Does he end homelessness? No. Does he cure diseases? No, obviously not. Does he cure viruses? No. What does he do? I've never known what his job description was. So then, and I'm going to wrap it up in a second, my mother got sick back in 2006. And she just was laying there in urine and just stuff coming out her mouth. And the doctor came up to me and she said, I think it's time for you and your family to think about a nursing home for your mom. And I was like, oh no, nah. My mom passed in 2018. This was 2006. So I got my sister, who was power of attorney, and I said, listen, let's take mother off all this medication. I called my friends back in Atlanta. I said, you know, man, they tell me put my mother in a nursing home. You know the first thing they told me? My old friend, he said, man, we're going to be praying for you. Me and my wife going to pray for you. If I was a Christian, my mother she would have left in 2006. I said, let's take her off all the medication. The doctor came to me. They said, you're going to kill your mom? I said, well, let us kill her. We're not going to let you kill her. So we took her off all the medication. In a week and a half, my mother got up out the hospital and walked away and lived 12 more good years. If I was a Christian, I would have just resolved to praying about it, given her the medicine, and she would have passed. I had her for 12 more years of my life. When she died in 2018, I did her eulogy. One of your loved ones died, you all do the eulogy. Don't let the preacher step on your loved one when you don't subscribe to that kind of stuff. So when I went up there and did the eulogy for my mother, the preacher was pissed at me. He said, no, I don't think you could. He said, well, he wasn't mad then. He did get pissed. He said, I just wouldn't do it. I just don't think. I said, well, I'm going to do it. He got mad at me because I told the truth. I told him, I said, well, Mother, she did go to church. She went to this church here, but Rev, every time I asked Mother what she learned, she said she fell asleep. Every time she came home, I said, Mother, what'd you learn today? Well, I ain't gonna lie, I fell asleep. He didn't like that. So when they put her in the ground, I went to shake his hand. He just turned away and he never spoke to me. He couldn't stand me for that. I don't care. You're not gonna do my mother's eulogy. That's my job. So the last story I want to tell you is about a young man. His name is CK. We'll call him CK. I don't want to mention his name. But CK. CK was a felon that I was going to hire. But I said, you got to get your certificate. He said, oh, Mr. J, I'm going to get it. I said, look, man, I've been nurturing him since he was 5 years old. He used to come by my house, play basketball barefoot. And he said, Mr. J, I'm going to get it. I said, listen, let me take you to get your certificate because that traffic going from Stone Mountain to Marietta is going to be hell. You got to be there at 8 in the morning. Oh, I'm going to make it. I said, okay. Come to find out, he called me at 1 o'clock. I knew he didn't make it. Now here it is. I'm stuck. I have nobody now. I'm by myself. And I know I got to start getting back home because my mother's getting sick. This is 2018. I got to start getting back home. So customer pulls in, and I'm in the middle of making my film, Holy Hierarchy. I'm in production. I'm filming, I'm doing everything, but I'm lacking 3 things. I need a drone. I need somebody to do, because I did all the editing, but I need someone to do the color grade and the audio, the sound grade and the color grade and the drone. So I'm pissed off at Clinton. I just can't believe it. I'm like, so customer comes in and I'm taking care of him and I'm just talking. I'm like, man, these young people, and he's looking at me like, looking at his phone like, this man won't shut up. And something told me, I said, man, what do you do for a living? He said, well, I'm a color grader. I fly drones. And, I do audio engineering. I'm like, excuse me? Me and him are still in touch to this day. He did the color grading on my film. He did the audio on my film. And the drone footage on my film was him. Now, Friday came. They tell you never put an ad out on Craigslist on a Friday. I would put an ad out, felons are welcome. So I put an ad out on Friday. I got about 10 calls, 10 to 12 calls. Are you certified? No. Hello, I'm calling about the job. Are you certified? Man, I'm sorry, I need somebody certified. Finally, I got a call. Are you certified? No, sir. I was like, damn, I got the. Do you live far from here? No, sir. Well, just come on up. So he came on up. He wasn't certified. I said, I got to train him. And I got to get him ready to go get certified because I got to get out of here. I only got a couple weeks left because I know I got to go see my mother. So he's looking at my paper sitting there. He said, Jeremiah. I said, Jeremiah. I said, yeah. He said, you're Mr. Jeremiah? I said, I think so. He said, wait a minute, you're Mr. Jeremiah? I said, yeah. He said, I've been hearing about you all my life. I said, what? He said, yeah. I said, how? He said, because I grew up with CK. This was CK's best friend growing up. I didn't even know that because we had moved out the neighborhood back in '02. And his name happened to be the same name of the man who owns the land where my business is. If I was a religious man, I would put all this together and say, look at God. look at God and what he's done for me. His name just happened to be what it is. Now, the owner who owned the lot, every time they would come up in my lot, because I own a car wash and I own an emission station where you test cars. Every time people would come up, especially, you know, after George Floyd and incident, blacks and whites, it's all black-owned businesses, black-owned business, right on, black-owned business, right on. But I always felt like this. I didn't really feel like I owned it. Why? Because I didn't own the land. So I started watching this film called The Founder. Anybody seen The Founder? About Ray Kroc, who owned McDonald's? Yeah, The Founder, right? One of my favorite movies. And I don't know why, I watched that film 5 times. Ray Kroc never made money in hamburgers. He made money in real estate. And I needed to own that land. So one day, the owner came up there, and I was telling him about how I got the place together, and he's a white guy. He's about 89 years old. I think he's 90 now, 91 or 92 now. But at the time, he's about 88, 89, and he's got worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And I went out there, I saw him pull up in that Navigator being chauffeured, and I went out there to him, I said, Mr. Corey, I've had to do this. I've had to pay thousands of dollars for this. I paid $1,000 for this. I paid $1,000. He waited very patiently. He smiled. And I'm quoting. He said, "We're not the blind. We're not the weak. We fall down, we get up. If Ray hadn't been so sorry, that's the guy who had the business before me, you wouldn't have this great opportunity. You're going to be just fine." I was like, whoa, okay, thanks a lot. 2 years later, I'm in the shower in 2020. And the phone rang. And I'm looking through the glass in the shower, and I see the property manager, Chuck. And I was like, what does Chuck want? I get out the shower. Before I had dried off, I called him back. I said, "Hey, Chuck, how you doing?" He said, "Hey, Jeremiah," got a country accent. He said, "I just want to tell you that Mr. Corey is cleaning up some of his properties and selling some. We wanted to know if you wanted to be interested in buying the property." I played hard to get, played like I wanted. I said, "Well, Chuck, can I think about it?" And I hung up the phone. And here it is. I'm butt naked and wet, and I did my Holy Ghost dance. I'm dancing. I was like, yes. If I was a Christian and a believer, I'm tying all this in. Look at God work. But the fact is, that is the law of, what is that law? Not compensation, but the law of inspired action. I kept watching that film. I kept watching it. Finally, now I'm in the process, we'll close next month, in owning commercial property. So not only will I own the 2 businesses on the land, I'll own the land itself. My wife is in the process of owning her land, where her tax business is. And, you learn from many different things. And this is what I want blacks to know. It's not the Bible. You learn from everybody. I was driving the truck. My first job, we moved to Atlanta. After raking leaves, I started working for the sanitation department. I had CDL license, so I was driving the sanitation truck. And I'm driving the truck, and when we pull into a subdivision, we stop and get the trash and go on, and when we get to the back. And so one day, I got out the truck driving, and I asked the guy, Fast Freddie was his name. I said, "Freddie," I said, why do we go to the end of the subdivision to get the trash? Why do we stop in the front when we get to the subdivision? Fast Freddie looked at me, he said, "'Cause, man, when we get the trash as we go, when we get to the back of the subdivision, we catch that breeze on the way out." That is my life story. Get it as you go to catch the breeze in life. And that's what me and my wife have done. We have gotten it as we have gone along and not wait. That story inspired me, not Jesus, but Fast Freddy. I never said I drove truck for sanitation. I always said I was a sanitation engineer specialist and consultant, just to give it a fancy title. So to close, I just want to say, well, about 2 months before this event, I found a wallet. It had $221 in it. I waited. I said, that guy will be back. I don't want nobody stealing my money. He came back. He said, who found it? And one of my guys said, this man right here. He said, man, they're good people. He didn't know I was a non-believer. I didn't even think that was important to tell him that. So today I'm sitting at breakfast, eating my chicken and waffles, and the guy that was serving us the monkey shoulder, the scotch we was drinking last night, he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, hey man, here the money, $20 that you dropped. That's the law of reciprocity. Universal laws work. They're always working. I didn't get $220, but I bet you if I had dropped $221, that man would have gave it back to me. You reap what you sow. What comes, that's the law of compensation. And so, faith has nothing to do in life. Doesn't matter what you believe. If it has nothing to do in life, what makes us think it has something to do when your life is over? You talk about street epistemology, that's one question to ask them. If it has no bearing on your life, why would it have any bearing on your life when it's over? Now, as Anthony Altman says, he said, you, the real you, is immortal. You have always existed and you always will. Was there really a God in my life? Nah, it was other human beings. It was the lady who rescued me from drowning. It was the fact that I was a certain height that I didn't get hit in the eye with the BB gun. It was the fact that I was hungry that I left, that I didn't get shot by the racist Robert Franklin. If you look it up on YouTube, Robert Franklin in Cincinnati. He wound up breaking free of a jail in Kentucky. But I was right behind those guys. Was there really a God? No, it was people. My trust, my faith, my love, my honor, my passion is in other people. And I realize nobody is watching us. The universe is only responding to us. I appreciate y'all.